I know when I was a project manager, that was something that always took me a while to wrap my head around, was the idea of over under billings and how that impacts, the cash position on a project. I always thought just like, hey, if I overbuild, I'm good. And then, I remember the first time my CFO explained to me, oh, over billings, they're good, but they're also considered a liability. Not having that accounting background, my head kind of exploded. So I think it really took me a while to really understand the importance of over under billing. So one thing I wanted to highlight here in the last few minutes is what are some tools that a project manager can use to really understand what's going on with their project billings. So what we're going to look at here is what we call the project billing dashboard. And this is a tool that a project manager can use to understand, okay, what is driving that over under billing. So we're going to look at that 21002. We can see we've got a $19,000 under billing on the project. If I look at this dashboard here, what I can quickly see here is, first off, I haven't billed yet this month. So this might be what Jason's talking about is, hey, the reason we have the underbilling is we can only bill on the 20th every month and we haven't submitted our billing yet. Where you want to start getting into a little more detail is when you look at what your costs in that month are. So I have $9,000 in costs in the month. And what we can look at is basically based on what your budget and your contract amount is, what do you need to bill in that month to make sure you don't end up with a net underbilling on the project? So if I have $9,000 in cost, that means I need to bill at least $11,000 this month to make sure I don't have a net underbilling for the current month. So we can quickly see here, all right, if I have a $19,000 underbilling and I still need to bill $11,000 this month, that means there's still $8,000 in that underbilling that's unexplained by the cost that I've incurred this month. It's probably a carryover from the previous month. So that means I got to dig into it. Is it because I didn't bill as much as I should have in the previous month? I can start to look at what my schedule of values are. Maybe I'm a little light on one of them. Or maybe it's what Jason was saying, that it's an early sign that we might have an overrun on the project. And I need to go back to that projected final cost tool and update it accordingly to make sure that I'm tracking it correctly. Some other really good information on this chart is this right here, your average days to pay. So you can get a sense of how quickly the client pays. I think that's something that people always battle with, is getting timely payments from their contractors. So this is a really good way so you can kind of see, okay, are they paying every 30 days, every 45 days? So you can be a little more proactive and say, okay, if they're taking 60 days to pay, I know I need to be more aggressive on my billings because I'm going to be going longer periods between when I get my payments, and I need to make sure I have enough cash on hand to finance the job. And the very last thing, this is the money graph Jason was talking about. I think it's a really good tool for project managers to look at. Basically, it's a timeline view of how much have you billed, what's your cost, and what's your cash. So you can kind of see how quickly it takes you to get cash flow positive on a project. And then also, are you cash flow positive? So are your costs above what that cash is, even if you're over or under billed on the project? All right, so going back to the whip one more time, Jason, I'll let you finish with any closing thoughts. I don't know if there's any last things you wanted to touch on, and then we'll turn to Q&A.
The only thing I'd really close on is we've went through a lot of data points, and data is knowledge. The more data you have, the better. You can explain jobs, whether they were really good or had poor performance with data. And the other issue is just knowing where your job is in progress. If you mistakenly over progress your jobs, that's going to affect your billings and your projected final costs. It can affect your profit and loss on the overall company's financials. So just knowing where at you're on a job is definitely needed, and all this information that we've shown just helps be able to provide better answers to what created the higher margins, what created the lower margins, the overbillings, the underbillings. So it's all a lot of information, but all of that information is knowledge. So